So what were we to do with a USB key? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying werewolves can't be tech savvy. That's just nonsense. Sure, some of us are, but take some of you lot here tonight. I reckon the lupus and Garou born among you might have very little clue what a USB key even is, which I now realize is a tad rude of me. It's a storage device humans use to store digital information like pictures. But the hobbits among you, you won't suddenly forget how to use a computer just because a tribal patron decided to accept you in their ranks. You won't suddenly become allergic to using guns just because you can grow fur and big muscles. If that, I mean guns that is, was your favorite method of hunting, maybe your dad took you into the woods once or twice a year or something, there's no fucking reason why that should change. The idea that werewolves as a whole are technologically inept is both ridiculous and straight up wrong. You go tell Golgol's Fangs first that he can't fight with his 2 machine guns. I hitch rides in cars all the time. I even used the GPS a couple of times when I ended up in some unfamiliar corners of the world. That said, some spirit patrons frown on technology or straight up hate it. And there are places where we can't bring our cell phones with us. For example, Griffin hates modern technology with a vengeance. Do not, ever, bring a phone to a Red Talon sept. If that thing rings, and they have not okayed it, they will bite, quite possibly kill you. Always check with the Cairn's gatekeeper before bringing tech on site, and you will be fine. So when I say we were technologically inept, I want you to understand that that was a matter of circumstance, and not because we were werewolves. Firehound was a 10-year-old wolf, so that's a no-go. Gloria hadn't touched a computer since she escaped from her parents' sept, and then she'd lived a few years alone in a frozen cavern. Sarah had never seen the point of the things. They weren't widespread in her youth, and now she spent all her days dealing with magic, rituals, and spirits of the sept. Jane knew her way around them more than most of us, but we didn't know what would happen when we accessed the contents of the key, so we didn't want to risk plugging it into her home computer if we could avoid it. So that left me and my decades-old laptop. If I wanted to seem cool, I'd say I hacked into that key with my deck like a computer wizard from a 90s movie. The truth was, the last time I'd been serious about computers was before my first change. I mean, my laptop was the bomb back in those days. But now, it didn't even boot. At first, it took me the better of 2 days to finally get it running. And then, it wanted to update for hours. I would lie if I said I did not come close to frenzy at least 7 times before we were able to look at the damn key. On it were dozens of files. Something weird and fancy. I think it was MKV files or something like that. I made a call to a few friends to even find out what those were and how the heck to even read them. They were indeed movies, as we thought, or at least as we had heard. Not the kind you'd want to show a bunch of teenagers, but exactly the kind you would absolutely exchange in locker rooms in secret. It was, in short, death. Real human deaths. Back when I was a kid, there was this old horror documentary from the 70s. Kids loved to exchange tapes and dared each other to watch it. It showed actual executions. But the stuff on that key, it was so much worse. Those were straight up murders. Some were filmed on what must have been hidden cameras. Others were handled by the killers, and I shit you not, 1 or 2 were even professional quality stuff. Like, there was clearly a cast and a crew just standing there, making sure the lighting was just right as someone's life was taken. I can turn into a 9-foot-tall monster. I have bitten heads off. I have slashed entrails. And the shit on that key, it sickened me. I was physically ill. It wasn't just the clips either. It was the cruelty of it all. It was realizing that there was a market for this. It was knowing that teenagers were sharing this, some probably laughing at it. When I kill, I do it out of necessity. I kill monsters. I kill things that need to be stopped so that others don't suffer their depredations. Anyway, it was bad is what I'm saying. As Sarah had recently explained, gorehounds were often people who liked slasher movies and went down into a spiral of violence until they were ripe for possession by a like-minded bane. This fit the bill extraordinarily well. Sarah, Gloria, and I agreed 2 gorehounds in a row. That was no coincidence. But something felt off. We couldn't quite put our finger on it. We felt like there must be more to it, and we knew who might be able to help. Down in Quebec City, in the sept of the concrete bonds, we had friends among the glasswalkers there, the tribe that was all about technology. If someone was using these tapes in a ritualistic or spiritual way to purposefully create fummery, they were our best bet to find out. While Gloria, Sarah, and I were huddled in a small corner of the sept where a diesel generator powered my laptop, Jane was outside with Firehound. I used the excuse that she needed to talk with him about his tribe to try and get her from seeing clips. It had not gone over too well with her, as she was now determined not to be excluded. But in the end, the shack was small and Gloria was big, and we just wouldn't all fit. She reluctantly agreed that Sarah's spiritual knowledge vastly exceeded her own, and that made much more sense for Sarah to be there. As for me, well, it was my damn laptop. So, she said to Firehound, your tribe is called Younger Brother? No. Jane sighed. She was getting used to the lupus's ability to remain very succinct and to the point. What do you mean? You asked if that was the name of my tribe. It isn't, so I said no. I mean, why do people call your tribe Younger Brother if that is not the name? Out of respect. Respect for what? Our kinfolks. Why? Our tribe is named after our spiritual patron. He is very well known in their beliefs, and speaking his name is taboo, a curse even. So we no longer use that name. Okay, but then where does this new name come from? That is a long story. We have time, Jane said. Horace has no idea what he's doing in there. Okay. You know how we are known as the Native American tribe. I don't. Not even a little bit. This is literally the first time anyone has ever told me anything about your tribe. Good. I will teach you correctly then. As you should know by now, patrons choose people based on who they are, not where they are. But in our case, there is some truth to the idea that a tribe can be localized. Our patron does usually select us from descendants of a specific group of people, but that is because of what he and them went through together. Because that is the very essence of my tribe, kinship and community. As a result, we are more deeply connected to the varied cultures of our kinfolk than most tribes. I see. Can I ask what happened? What did you and your patron go through? I will try to tell you the story as humans understand time. There were no werewolves in America when this story begins. All the tribes lived in Europe or Asia, but Gaia is everywhere, and so is the worm. When great trouble arose here in America, Gaia called out to her warriors, the Garou, to come here. She spoke to all of the wolf changers in their dreams, but only the three brothers answered her call. Us, younger brother, middle brother, and older brother. My elders say the other tribes were too busy infighting or seeking glory for themselves to hear her call. I believe that the three brothers were the only ones able to answer the call because they were always there to help each other. The brothers each had strengths and weaknesses, but they completed each other. We had harmony. Our lands were not in danger. Our kin were safe. We could afford to answer. The other tribes were alone. They did not have brothers. But the reasons do not matter. We three answered. The other two, do they have names, or are all three names taboo? In those days, our name was not taboo. Our patron then was called Sasquatch, a frost giant of immense strength like us. Middle brother was called Croatan. Their totem was the turtle, which carries the world on its back, from which they gained great resilience. Older brother are children of the poisoned serpent, who taught them dark secrets, which they, wise as they are, have used against the worm countless times, without falling to temptation. Are they called poisoned serpents? No. Their patron is powerful and dangerous, and its name is also taboo. We do not use their real name either. We call them older brother. But Croatan is okay? I've never heard of them. Are they rare? Asked Jane. They are dead, answered the wolf. Like, all of them? Yes. How? Sacrifice. Firehound, you have to know that doesn't explain a damn thing. Give me more. No. I mean, not yet. It won't make sense now. I'm trying to tell you the events that caused the next one, as Almids do, so you understand. The tree tribe joined together. They gathered their kinfolks and began a long journey. Only we left some of our tribe behind. In Russia, right? Gloria's story had some members of your tribe in it. I think so. The majority of us left. We traveled for days and days and days. That seemed like they would never end. We crossed the Umbra on a path the spirits showed us. Oh, the Bering Strait. You're talking about when humans crossed over to America. I do not know your history. Either your history is wrong or those events are not the same. There were humans and wolves here when we arrived. But first, we had to survive the travel. The worm did not want us interfering with its plans, and it attacked us constantly. Many died from hunger, from cold, or constant battle. Many simply lost their ways despite our guide's best efforts. We had to clear the path, but the spirits made sure to keep us on the safest routes and lead us to good fishing spots. Even so, it was not enough. We got there, but so many were lost that our beloved patron couldn't bear the pain. He was so stricken with such grief that his very essence changed. Sasquatch's heart froze. He became a creature of cold, destructive sadness. We have been taking care of him ever since. Others speak ill of him, call him a monster, or even a cannibal. But he is one of us, and we will not abandon him. When we got to the Americas, we settled in the coldest and most inhospitable region we could find, up north in the ice. We sang songs and danced our ritual dances so that he would remain in peace. Here, where he could harm no one. So it is still. We care for him as he cares for us. In his harsh way, he makes us stronger. Anyone able to survive there can survive in the worst of what the worm can send us. Do you see now the shared history, what he and those who crossed went through together, He chooses them and their descendants because they are his people, and they choose him because they love him. And we want to take care of each other, whatever the cost. Community, concluded Jane. Community, concurred the wolf. So that's it? That's younger brother? Ventured the human, oblivious to how wrong she was. No, growled the lupus. The story is barely begun. When the three brothers made it to America, they met with other shapeshifters. The were-bears, the were-dragons, the were-cats, the were-coyote. All and more lived here in harmony, for the war of rage had never reached here. They found in them allies and friends that would help us settle in and work with us to fight the worm and finally answer Gaia's call to action. The result was something called the Pure Lands. The three Americas cleansed, the minions of the worm defeated. Those we could not destroy, older brother bound with spells and rituals until the end of time. Or rather, until the Wormbringer came. The wolf paused for effect. At least, I like to imagine he did that, because that's what I would have done. That seems bad, Jane replied. It is. What is it? A bane, or a dancer's deed name? Jane ventured, still trying to get the wolf to explain things. It's you, it answered. Me? How? Your people. Jane took a second to figure it out. Oh, you mean me as in us Europeans? Yes. Those who brought the worm back with them on boats to a land that was free of it. Wormbringers. Oh, wow, Jesus, that's a lot. Every goddamn conversation is a lot with you guys. She took a second to settle. Okay, sorry, I'm good. I didn't mean to interrupt. You were saying we pooped the bed. Your bed. You did more than that. European kinfolk warred against native kinfolk, and that couldn't stand. Soon werewolves were at war. Those with a mind for expansion and territory weren't above taking cairns that weren't theirs. Many died, and many cairns were lost, and that was just the beginning of the many tragedies. I said, older brothers' cairns served as binds to great many evils. Those who stole the lands did not know the proper ways, and the beasts were freed as a result. The Shadow Lords even started a second war of rage here, slaughtering our allies and exterminating every last Camisots, the werebats. In time, peace returned, and we joined the nation. But this alliance has long been brittle. While there are some among my tribe who find it impossible to move on, most of us accept that we are all Gaian. We rarely leave our homelands of the north, but a few are like me. We work towards common understanding and respect. The Pure Lands are no more, but they can be again. If we work together, as the three brothers once did. This has been A Rite to Remember, Season 2, Episode 6. A series of lore videos for Legacy Werewolf the Apocalypse presented through an immersive narrative. Many werewolf tribes share a problem. The problem is that the books focus so much on one single edgy aspect of a tribe that even when they try to retcon later, that aspect tends to be the only thing brought up when talking about that tribe. They then end up singled out, misunderstood, or just plain excluded from games as a result. The Red Talon, the Black Fury, the Get of Fenris, and Little Brother suffer from this effect a lot. For example, the Red Talon tribe struggles to define itself outside of its issues with mankind, and most see them as nothing more than bloodthirsty, murderous monsters as a result, completely missing out on everything else this tribe can be. Such is the case with Younger Brother. Regardless of what's actually written on the pages, They tend to be seen as that unreasonable Native American tribe tied to cannibalism. There's also the significant problem of the tribe's official name. Some find insult in the fact that this tribe is based after a cannibal creature. But above and beyond that, the name is a serious curse in the culture it comes from, and should never be uttered lightly, certainly not as a game. In short, whoever you are, whichever culture you're from, odds are you are not happy with younger brother written as is. What I tried to show here is that there is more to little brother than war and bad blood. There's warmth, there's love, there is kinship through hardship, there is an unwavering will to survive no matter what, and there's a willingness to learn the lessons that can only be found in the harshest of conditions. Younger brother doesn't like the cold because it's cold. Their theme isn't frost. They love temperatures so cold it sears the skin because it is a challenge to be withstood. Surviving it makes them strong enough to take on the enemies of Gaia, and because it is a gesture of love and kindness towards their patron who can't help but radiate this terrible frost by the pure intensity of his anguish. Because if they didn't put up with such deadly weather, he would be truly alone with his grief. And they just won't have that. That's love. That's community. That's devotion. And that's as tragic as it is beautiful. If you do want to know more about the tribe's human heritage, go for it. It's filled with interesting people and history. Just be respectful of it and be considerate before you bring any of it into your games. As for me, I'm not going to get into it here. I'm not knowledgeable enough to do it right, and my white ass doesn't want to accidentally insult anyone. One last thing. The name Younger Brother is not the canonical name. But what I said about it being taboo, a curse even, is true. Little, middle, and older brother are official monikers, however. So some folks, like me, now just use that instead, out of respect. Obviously, that meant some tweaks in the narrative that I hope you will forgive. With W5 removing ties to human cultures, I was hoping they would use the opportunity to redress some of the problematic portrayals of the past. But they didn't. Or rather, they almost didn't. The Gale Stalkers, as they are now known, were almost excluded from the book altogether. One of the early ideas, back when W5 was in continuity with earlier editions, was to kill them all. Because nothing says we're sorry for appropriating your culture quite like killing off the entire culture from the game. But they didn't end up doing that, and that does count for something. Unfortunately, what they did end up doing is quite... The entire tribal write-up for the Gale Stalkers can be summed up by this. They hunt. That's it. There's this new notion in W5 that all tribes are given 4 verbs that each help you see what kind of things are expected to do when you play this tribe. But all 4 Gale Stalker verbs basically mean hunt. The book literally puts them one after another, describing the 4 steps of a successful hunt. There's literally nothing else to the tribe except in the end, where they are described as relying on other tribes to tell them what to hunt. The book posits that it's because there's just too much to hunt in the days of the apocalypse and that it's hard to prioritize. But that doesn't help much, as the implication is still that other tribes are perfectly capable to prioritize and tell them what to hunt, and they're working with the same data. To be fair, tribes usually have a downside, and the Gale Stalkers needed one too. And when all you give a tribe is, they hunt, there's not much else they could have given them. Still, at worst, it's insulting to the people it used to represent, and at best, it's a vapid take that completely misses the point of the tribe. Join us back next episode for something a little different.